The Commentary Booth is a show for media lovers by media lovers just like you. If you want to support the show, go to jamiapsmedia.com. Welcome to the Commentary Booth, the ultimate weekly entertainment recap and review show. My name is Jamie Apps, and each week I'll be joined by a rotating cast of co-hosts to run you through the entertainment media we've consumed during the week. Along the way, we'll provide you with insightful commentary and reviews. This week I'm joined by a teacher and travel blogger who lists their favourite movie as Fight Club and favourite TV show as Band of Brothers. Welcome back to the show, Buddy McClelland.
Thank you for having me back. Happy New Year.
Same to you. It's been a while. How was the holiday break?
Good. It continues. The joys of school teaching.
You've got, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks left?
Yeah, we go back the day after Australia Day. But then it's a pupil free when we go back. So you go back and kind of at least get a day to get your life in order, and you do like mandatory training stuff. But yeah, I don't like to think about that now. I just like to pretend I've got forever. Yeah,
I wish. I've been back at work for like 3 weeks now.
Sucker. Don't ask me about teaching when we're back teaching, but right now, very, very good career choice.
Yeah. Have you done any New Year's resolutions for this year?
Not really. I've got our wedding happening now, so everything's become wedding focused because COVID pushed us back, or October last year through to May this year, so 7 or 8 months or whatever it is. So everything's become a big wedding focus. We kind of, with COVID, were sitting there thinking the whole time that it was ages away and it was next year. And then all of a sudden New Year's happened. We're like, oh man, it is next year.
It is rapidly approaching.
May is only really, it's the start of May. So we thought it was 5 months being the 5th month. But really, because we did it at the start, it's only 4 months. And all the things we paid deposits on, we now have to finish paying off. So not so much a New Year's resolution, more just a kick in the pants to really get focused on that.
Yeah, it is a bit like that when the year kicks around. You're like, oh, hang on, it's not next year anymore.
Yeah, it happened fast.
Even right up until New Year's Eve, you're like, it's next year, it's next year.
Yeah, and then the next day we woke up and it was, a very big realization. And it's still tricky to know what to do with weddings at the moment, and we've just decided that we're going to run with it no matter what. But I think with the current rules, you can have 20 people dancing, and we've just lost a couple of guests because of them being based in London, so they can't get there, which is frustrating. But yeah, just got to kind of take things as they come at the moment. I mean, even with family coming from interstate, you don't know right now.
Yeah, most of your family and Anne's family are New South Wales based, though, aren't they?
Yeah, she's got some Melbourne. Mine are all, pretty local. I've got step family that are in Queensland and Victoria, so that makes it tricky for them. I mean, even with one of the groomsmen with Benny, he's in Canberra, and even Canberra had Wollongong as a hotspot up until a week ago, so yeah, tricky.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Hopefully you've got that 4 months or I suppose January's sort of halfway done. You got 3 and a bit months. It'll clear up by then.
Yeah, well, hopefully people start getting jabbed.
Yeah, well, if they do start doing that, I'll be first in line.
Yeah, good. Well, at least we can guarantee you there. I'll put you as one of my 20 for dancing.
No, don't do that. Anne can have the whole dance floor to herself.
No way, that's my dance floor.
Are teachers included in that early stages of the vaccine stuff? Do you know that?
That's a very good question. We usually are included in the flu vaccines and things like that, and usually we get them for free, mostly because they want schools to continue operating, and like everyone found out that we were essential back when it all kicked off. You need teachers there for the kids to be there so everyone else can do their jobs. So usually we're in the earlier parts. We wouldn't be first. You'd think they do all the health workers and elderly vulnerable people first. But I'd say we'd be in the top half.
Yeah, I think they've said the first wave is specifically for healthcare and like police and those sort of people. And then the second wave is the elderly people with underlying conditions, and I'm assuming teachers would potentially be in that second wave.
Yeah, well, hopefully at least the elderly or more vulnerable for whatever health reason teachers then, because I've seen a lot of stuff over from the States with a lot of teachers contracting it, just going to work and getting quite sick, and some of them obviously would be dying. So, I mean, like, it's a good career and it's important, but no job's worth dying over.
No.
So, yeah, I don't know. And then there's a lot of people that are kind of not anti-vaxxers, but it seems like there's a lot of people now. I don't know if it's because of that anti-vax movement has made people question it a lot more, but there's a lot of, I don't know if you feel the same, but there's a lot of distrust around from people at the moment, that it's come out too quick, and I've heard people tell me they think it's going to make them infertile, and honestly, I have no idea whether it would or it wouldn't, but I trust it enough to get it done. But I don't know, have you been hearing people like that?
I've seen a lot of, like, there's been the protests and stuff on the news, and yeah, people just being skeptical of it, but like, it can't be any worse than a flu vaccination. It's essentially built the same way.
Strange time to be alive. Like, no more information has ever been able to be readily accessed, but you just don't know who and what to trust a lot of the time.
Yeah, purely because, it has been so quickly rushed out. Like, it's so needed, but a typical vaccination, they'd still be sort of in this only the second wave of trials, not right, the first ones didn't kill anyone, let's send them out.
Yeah, I hate that. It feels like it's, I don't know if it's the same people, but it felt like at the start everyone was just so focused on when's the vaccine coming out and what date and how quick can we make it, and then all of a sudden these companies do all this amazing work and make it quickly, and then people complain that it happened too quickly.
Yeah, it is probably the exact same people.
It's like you were begging for it to come out, now it's out, you don't trust it. Like,
yep,
you either want it or you don't.
Yeah, if you don't want it, then that's your choice, but if you get sick, then don't expect somebody else to be there to look after you. I heard that they were trying to potentially make it mandatory for work and stuff. Like, if your job makes it mandatory and you don't want to get it, well, that's your choice. Like,
yeah.
Like, especially teachers. Like, if they make it mandatory for teachers and then there's a few that don't want to get it, well, okay, don't have a job.
Well, you need it for that herd immunity. Like, it won't work unless everybody gets it, because then you give the virus potential to mutate and change, then the vaccine doesn't work anymore, we're back to square one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, that's what's happened with some of the, like, measles and stuff. It was almost out, and now you've got people that are anti-vax, and it's coming back stronger than ever.
Just let them vaccinate you, let them put the microchip in and track you and move on. Yeah,
like, you're already scanning in everywhere with the QR code. Everyone knows where you are. Like, just deal with it.
Yeah. See, that also gets me. And then the people like, the government are tracking where I go, and thinking, I'm not that interesting. Like, if they want to track me going to Woolworths and the golf course and home, why is that exciting for anyone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they've literally, since they made the New South Wales QR code mandatory, they've seen me go to Subway, Officeworks, and the cake shop.
You reckon there's a bloke at ASIO going, oh, can't believe it, he's run out of milk again. Oh, he's gone back for another cake. Yeah. This is groundbreaking. Watch this.
How many bloody cakes does this kid need? All of them, please. Thank you very much.
He's half cake, half Subway. We don't know how it's happening. Keep tracking him.
That just reminded me, I checked in at Nowra McDonald's yesterday at 3:18 and didn't check out.
You're living there.
So it now looks like I was at Nowra McDonald's for 26 hours.
I don't remember to check out a lot of the time. Doesn't it just assume that you've left after a while?
I would assume so, but I just checked it then and it still had me checked in at Nowra McDonald's.
Right.
So I just hit check out. So.
Well, in that case, I'm probably checked into about 18 different places at once right now.
Have fun checking that one, New South Wales Health, being like, why did this person spend 26 and a half hours at McDonald's?
You're loving it.
And doesn't work there. Oh, well, fun times. But yeah, I did my New Year's resolution has been to read 12 books this year, one a month.
Oh.
Currently on track. Finished one, halfway through the second one. So
wow. You're ahead of schedule.
Yeah, well, I started the first one in December.
Right. Did you find Wally?
Yes, I did. Jerk, no. And then, yeah, apart from that, it's just been not a lot.
Good book. What was it?
It was a biography of AJ Lee, one of the former women's wrestlers at WWE, married to CM Punk, and she spoke about her experiences with mental health issues, such as she's got, not split personality, something like that.
Like a bipolar or something?
Bipolar, that's the one. So she has dealt with that all her life. Her parents had drug addiction issues, and it just spoke about all through that, and then obviously the wrestling at the end and how wrestling sort of helped her.
Yeah. I love biographies.
I'm the same. Absolutely. Give me a biography 98% of the time, and then every now and then I'll just read a novel.
Yeah, like it takes a big story to beat something that's a true story in my head. Like I feel like I learn a lot more from people's actual stories.
100%. That's a nice little segue into one of the first things I watched this week, which is a true story. It's called The Jungle, and it's a movie on Netflix starring Daniel Radcliffe. It's from 2017. Daniel Radcliffe plays Yossi Ginsberg, who's an Israeli backpacker / adventurer who got lost in the Amazon jungle for 3 weeks in 1981.
Man, wouldn't that have been terrifying?
Like, what a nightmare.
Yeah.
You're not just lost in a small jungle. You are lost in the biggest jungle in the world. And 1981, you don't have GPS. You don't have anything of any way to work out where you are and which way you need to walk.
Yeah.
And everything just looks exactly the same.
Yeah, I watched it, and first up, like, the big thing I took from it was I got so into it. Again, might have been because it was a true story, but I didn't see Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter for the first time in, I think, ever.
Yeah, that was one of the big things I took away from it as well. Like, he's such an underrated actor because everybody just looks at him and sees Harry Potter all the time, and this was the first time where you look at him and you don't see Harry Potter anymore because of what he's going through.
Yeah. Well, I didn't at one time in the movie stop and think, hey, just like fly, get your broom and fly out of there. Where's the Nimbus? So,
yep.
Yeah, it got me. I thought it was good. It's a scary true story that they got led into there. But man, he was naive, the guy, Yossi, going into the Amazon rainforest just on the back of, hey, I know where I'm going, follow me.
Yeah, some random guy that he met on a whim.
Yeah. And just in the middle of, Bolivia?
Yep. Yeah, like we're going to go see this undiscovered, undocumented village. Follow me. I know where I'm going. I don't have a map or anything. I know. Yeah,
and I feel like, okay, well, alarm bell number 1, random guy in the street. Alarm bell number 2, undiscovered remote village. Like, it's probably undiscovered for a reason.
Yeah, like especially when you think there's cannibalism and everything through there.
Yeah, I feel like everything's trying to kill you in there.
Yes, there is a lot of deadly stuff in the Amazon jungle. Even the goddamn ground tries to kill him at one point.
Yeah.
The old quicksand.
Yeah. And I get it. That's a scary feeling. We only did... And I to be fair to him, I actually did a very, very similar thing recently. I don't know if I told you this story, but we went for a hike out in somewhere out the back near Jamboree to a place called Gerringong Falls.
Yep.
And I kind of just learnt how to get there off the back of like a blog post and looking at a couple of maps and things and thought I had it dialed in. And we actually got lost going in there, following a guy that told me he knew where he was going. And you just get caught up in the moment of being like, oh, okay, well, that makes it easy for me. And we followed this guy. Eventually we got down there, but he got us lost a couple of times. But then he left us down there swimming, and that was all cool. But he told me there was a shortcut to get back on, and we ended up, long story short, being on a hike that was supposed to take 5 or 6 hours, took us 13 hours. And we were, I reckon, within a half an hour of getting stuck down the bottom of a gorge in the dark.
Ugh.
And that was for one night in the Australian bush in 2020. I would have been terrified being 20 nights in the Amazon in 1981. Like, that was scary enough. Scary enough that for Christmas, Anne actually went out, and my big present for Christmas that I actually tested out today was a GPS locator.
Okay, yep. Like an EPIRB or something similar to that.
Yeah, it's similar to the EPIRB, so it doesn't have that function of like calling for a distress, but it geographically tracks you using GPS satellites. So even if your phone doesn't have reception, it just attaches to whatever satellites it can see. And basically, as long as you can see the sky, it leaves like breadcrumbs of where you've been. And if you want to go back the way you came, you just backtrack, follow this arrow on a compass, and you can basically just walk in your exact steps to get back out the way you came.
Oh, nice. Well, that shows how panicked Anne was on your walk, even if she didn't quite show it at the time.
Yeah, well, I don't know if people have been out there, but like if you've ever been out hiking deep in the bush and there's no tracks, but people put little bits of like pink tape on trees, and make little rock statues, like little piles of rocks, and you kind of follow those along. But after a while, it all just kind of blends into one, and you start following tracks that you think are people tracks that are wombat tracks, and yeah, it gets pretty dire out there, and you realise that you're running out of daylight, and you don't want to have to camp down there. So yeah, I can only didn't that guy Yossi? He ate monkeys and things to survive out there. Apparently, like he went real deep.
Yeah, so you see in the movie where he like kills a monkey, eats the monkey, eats random bugs and bits of fruit that have fallen off the trees and stuff.
Yeah, he loses his plot for a while and thinks there's someone with him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has to cut some weird worm grub thing out of his forehead. Has trench foot there, the same as one of his partners, Marcus. They get trench foot and just can't walk anymore. Like, just scary stuff.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, he probably got the better deal.
Yep. Yeah, so they initially go in with a four-man team. There's Yossi, Kevin Gale, an American photographer, Marcus Stam, who's a Swiss teacher and the friend of the two. And they follow the mysterious guide, Karl Ruprechter, who, as it turned out at the end, was wanted by the authorities. So no surprise that he was willing to walk into the bush randomly.
Stranger danger. Big stranger danger.
Yes. And then after walking for a few days, Marcus gets trench foot, can't keep up, so they decide that they're going to split the group, with Marcus and Carl doing a 3-day hike back to La Paz. But Yossi and Kevin are going to continue down the river on a makeshift raft, but Marcus and Carl are never seen again. And Yossi and Kevin end up crashing the raft, get split up in the jungle. Kevin gets rescued by the locals, but Yossi is then stuck in the jungle by himself, no food, no tools, for almost 3 weeks.
What's the worst you've ever been lost? Have you ever been lost in the bush or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. My mum thought I was lost once. We went up to the Gold Coast, stayed in like this big sort of caravan resort park thing. We had a little cabin thing, and I was like, I'm just going to go up to the shop. And I was probably only like 12 or 13 or something. And Mum's like, yeah, that's fine. Go up to the shop, get an ice cream. I walk up to the little shop, get an ice cream, and then as I'm walking back, there was people playing cricket in the field. Me, cricket nut, sits down, starts watching the cricket. Yeah, I was apparently there for a few hours. Mum's panicking, driving all around this caravan park thing, trying to find me, and then they eventually found me, and I got in a lot of trouble for that one. I didn't realise how long I was there for.
It's good cricket. We were telling that story to a group of friends over dinner, and I won't name the person that told me this story when we started saying, okay, well, have you ever been lost in the bush? But one of the girls, when she was, I think she was similar to you, kind of around sort of the 11 or 12 mark, went for a walk out into the bush with a next door neighbour and her younger brother. Long story short, they got completely lost in the bush and ended up having to stay overnight.
Oh.
Helicopters and stuff went out looking for her, but because they were wanting to lay somewhere out of the grass, they laid on top of some rocks, and because they laid on the rocks, apparently it sucked the heat out of them, and the helicopter's thermal cameras couldn't see them.
Oh, lovely.
So they end up spending the whole night in the bush. The next day they get up and they go, okay, well, we better try and keep getting out of here. Eventually they get found by rescuers, and then she said, but it kind of didn't stop there because we got interviewed by the news and the Daily Telegraph, And they said, "Oh, well, now that you've been found, what do you want to do?" And her brother's response was, "I'd just like a bath and some Milo." So the headline was a bath and some Milo, and because that happened, Milo sent them a year's supply for free.
Hey, it all works out in the end.
Yeah. Free Milo, good bath, and a great story. And then she pulled up the Daily Telegraph article too to prove it.
Nice. That's awesome.
Quality. So it made me feel a bit better that we at least got out of there. But GPS, if Yossi had had it, I reckon you would have been all right.
Yeah, he would have been able to just trek you out. But yeah, he had no idea. He didn't know which way was which. He started walking in circles and
Crazy.
Nightmare stuff. But I was looking at some of the random trivia on IMDb for the movie. And obviously because it's based on a book, based on true life, they had to condense parts of it, had to leave a few things out. The three things that I read that were surprisingly left out was when Yossi woke up one morning absolutely covered in leeches. So that would have been fun. There was also another part where he slipped down a slope and impaled his rectum on a broken stick. Not sure why they left that one out. And then there was another time where he woke up and found that a swarm of termites were eating the patches of his skin where he'd urinated on himself. So, like, he already went through a lot in the movie and they left those three big things out. So, good on him.
He looks surprisingly normal, the real guy, too. Like, doesn't he have, like, a ecological tourism business or something similar now?
Yep, up in Byron Bay.
There you go. Everyone's up there.
Have to go up and call Yossi, see how he's going. Once we're allowed out of quarantine, especially you.
We're clean. We're all right.
So, yeah, speaking of surviving near-death experiences, I think you were watching a show similar about that topic.
Yeah. Netflix, they brought out another like documentary series thing. It's called Surviving Death, which sounds quite morbid, but it takes like the approach of looking at near-death experiences or I guess like supernatural sort of experiences that people have, and it kind of deep dives into them, which I find really interesting. And I think that like they mention it in the show, like everybody should really have an interest in what happens after you die. And I know a lot of people have religion and faith and things like that, but I think this just takes a really cool look at what happens after you die, what people think happens, and I guess gives you a bit of insight into people's experiences that a lot of the time people write off. I think people sort of are quick to say, oh, it was because you were running out of oxygen, or it was because of, I don't know, or your nerve endings firing at once or whatever. But there's a weird bunch of similarities and calm feelings and just, yeah, crazy stuff that people experience as they die, or as they were supposed to have died. And they really deep dive into that. And they don't do it in a way that is just agreeing with them the whole time. They're kind of skeptical. So it goes through the first episode being near-death experiences. Then it moves into like mediums and physical mediums that can be controlled by spirits, or psychic mediums and people doing readings. And it kind of dives into them and tries to look at whether they're real or could they be picked apart. Because I know a long time ago, there's some pretty legitimate sort of academics that used to look into it, looking back at it, like old Nobel Prize winners and things used to actually do seances and things like that. So there's a lot more of the scientific community that were interested in it than I kind of realized.
Yep.
Which kind of makes sense. Like, yeah, I think as humans we get really stuck in the idea that we think we know everything, and when there's things that we don't know about, we prefer just to pretend it doesn't matter. I think that happens when you kind of think about life after death or whatever it might be, or just death in general, or I don't know, space, things like that. I think people are quite happy just to be blind in it, and this show is kind of a way of having a little bit of a look inside of that. So they go through mediums, they go through signs from the dead, seeing dead people, and I think the last one is reincarnation, but I haven't quite got to that yet. But yeah, really interesting look at people who take it quite seriously, and people that you wouldn't expect to be, I guess, the people that would believe in it. They don't write it off, and they don't blindly believe it, which is something that I really enjoy about it. It's kind of a fair look at what's happening there.
Yeah, it's a nice balanced approach rather than just either trying to prove it or disprove it.
Yeah, and there's weird moments in it, and there's moments where I do think they kind of catch people out where they're faking it a bit. Like they do a séance, and these people are all really into it. And it's a really weird one where they do a physical medium. So she's sitting there and goes into like this trance state, and these spirits that are supposed to be her spirit team come through her, and they say that they control her voice box, and it's like one of the people that comes through has a real deep voice that's coming out of this sort of smaller blonde Dutch lady, and then there's a young boy comes out and it sounds like a weird Sesame Street puppet, and she kind of starts going through things that are just shocking to the people that are sitting in the seance, but once they leave, they kind of realize that everything she said is just readily available information from Facebook. But then they have a look at another medium, and it was the complete opposite. It was a bunch of things like there's something in your pocket right now that you've moved from your purse before you got here, and that means a lot to you, and it's from your daughter. And there's just no way that anyone could have known that. Or another guy that had a code word that he put in when he was sort of hoping to communicate with his dead parent and things like that. So yeah, really interesting. And for me, I like it. Like I'm not a particularly religious person or anything like that, so I'm quite inquisitive into like I always wonder what would happen. I think everyone does, but just prefers to switch that part of their brain off. But yeah, really interesting, and I like that supernatural aspect. My only real criticism of the show would be they try to take a scientific look at what is happening, but then they definitely, with the music and the violins and things, play up on the horror aspect.
Okay, yep.
So they purposely try and make it a little bit scary at times, which I think goes against what they're actually trying to do, which is have a genuine look at people's experiences with the supernatural.
Yeah, like there's heaps of scientific studies into it. Like there's the fact that when people die, their bodies lose a certain weight, and that's like consistent across everyone. There's just so many weird phenomenon that it's like there's all these similarities. It can't just be coincidence that they're all the same.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know what I believe. I know that you've had some experiences and stuff. Like I've definitely had some spooky experiences, but nothing that's convinced me one way or another. But yeah, interesting. Definitely worth a watch.
When we were living together, we had those few weird occurrences where things were moved or things were turned off at the power point.
Yeah.
For no reason. It's just strange stuff.
Yeah, strange. And they talk about that. So they talk about in the signs sort of thing that, I don't know for you what it might be, but particular things appearing over and over, like signs being sent to you, whether it's like certain types of birds, or I know there was a guy that was talking about butterflies or lights flickering, things like that, and weird patterns. And they were saying that that's a way of the spirit world contacting you, and that the spirit people, or they're not really people anymore, but the spirits that are around you are always around you, which I like the idea of, because it's a nice supportive feeling. But then it kind of creeps me out sometimes. Like, I don't know, I don't really want the spirits around me when I'm taking a shower. But I don't know how I feel about it. I guess it's petty, but yeah, interesting, worth a watch. And yeah, I don't know if you're inquisitive, which, like I said, I think everyone should be, because sadly enough, everyone will eventually die. So I think it's an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, like I've had experiences where I've woke up with my dad standing over me in bed, and like that's just always creepy. And it's like, okay, the first time it was scary, and then all the subsequent times have been like, okay, I get it, you're here now, thanks.
When you say like standing over, because a lot of these people, like, they see people in different ways. Like, was it like ghostly, or was like an actual person? Like, how did it look, or how did he look?
So the first time it happened, he was standing like at the foot of my bed watching me sleep, and it was like, it was sort of you could tell it was a person, and I could tell who it was, but they weren't like solid and 100% there, like if it was my mum or my brother standing there.
Right.
So it was enough of like, that's a bit weird. And then I sort of looked more, I was like, oh wait, that's Dad. Okay. And like that's happened a few times. I've had moments where like even Toby will be sitting totally calm, and then all of a sudden just like sit up and look and stare off into the distance. And like if there's cars or something, he'll bark, but it's nothing like that. He's just staring at something, and it's just weird.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's a lot of the time, or most of the time, like it's completely sane people having really similar experiences that skeptics just like to write off as nothing.
Yep.
Which I just don't believe. Like, these people are having valid experiences and they're not crazy people.
Yeah, and like my mum and my auntie have had, like, they have blankets and stuff on the backs of their lounges and things like that, just so that if they need a blanket, it's there. And these blankets are like draped over the back of the lounge. They're not just going to fall off either side, and they've just fallen off multiple times. That's strange things like that. Last year or the year before, I've lost all sense of time. When I interviewed John Edward, like, he picked up on weird things, and I was like, you shouldn't know that.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that they talk about with mediums like John Edward, that is it cold reading? Do they just kind of blankly cold read you and just gauge what they should keep saying because you feed them information accidentally? Or is it particular things that they know that they otherwise shouldn't?
I was intentionally trying to, like, stay standoffish and not tell him things and conduct the interview more like it was my work.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, he was just at the end, was like, oh, are you, like, the outsider in your family? And I was like, kinda, yeah, that's what? And then, yeah, like, we were speaking about my dad, and he picked up on some strange things. And I was like, you shouldn't know this. Like, you have a list of all these people interviewing you. Like, you're not going to be able to research all of these people and come in with this much stuff.
Yeah, or why would you? Like, you're being interviewed, so they're obviously talking to you about what you're promoting anyway. Like, you don't need to give them a free demo.
Yep. It's very interesting. I'll have to go and check that show out. I did see it on there. Like, I'll add that to the list, and it's kind of fallen in to the back of the list as one of those things that the problem with Netflix, add it to the list, and then it never gets around to being watched.
Yeah, really interesting, and like I said, like, it gives you a bit of insight into other people's experiences if, like me, you haven't really had too much other than PowerPoints being flicked off here and there, or maybe some signs and birds and things like that. So it gives you a good insight into other people's experiences and a world that you otherwise are just kind of intentionally or unintentionally switched off to.
Other things on my Netflix queue that I actually did get around to watching this week was season 3 of Cobra Kai. They brought it forward, actually, when it debuted. It was meant to debut the second week of January, but they brought it forward to the 1st of January, 2021. And the season immediately opens with the fallout of the big high school brawl from the end of season 2. Miguel is in hospital, Robbie's on the run, Samantha is struggling with fear and panic attacks, and then obviously, as always, Daniel and Johnny are still bitter rivals and dealing with the trauma in their own way. I know you were a big fan of the first 2 seasons. Have you had a chance to watch season 3?
I haven't, no. So I've been too busy watching dead people.
Thanks, what's his name from Sixth Sense? So yeah, I'm not going to spoil it for you then, but yeah, this season has John Kreese leading Cobra Kai as it's sort of in a rebuilding phase, and they double down with Hawk and Tori as the top students and try to bring in some new kids and ultimately try to get Robbie as well. It all builds to setting up the All Valley tournament, which is coming back for season 4. This season had Ali Mills, who was the love interest from Karate Kid, come back and reprise her role. We get a bit more background on John Kreese and how he got into karate. Sets up teasing for some more returns from people from Karate Kid. You get some returns from season 2 where Daniel went to Japan in Karate Kid 2. So it was a really good season, actually. I really enjoyed this one.
Really good that they've stuck with a good show too. Like, it worked for them, Netflix, to flip the roles out of Karate Kid and go with it, and it's good that they've stuck with it. I feel like a lot of the time at the moment they kind of run a season, just get rid of it, leave you on a cliffhanger, and it doesn't come back. Really good that they've found something that works and they're sticking with it.
Yeah, so I did read some stuff about that last year where they found that 3 seasons was typically the run of a Netflix show. And it was because that first season they could get away with producing a show on a relatively small budget and then still get a big audience from it. But then once that show got that popularity, they then need to up the budget and up the production. So then season 2 and 3 are usually filmed around the same time so that they have that increased budget, but then because it's run for that long, it's hard to get new viewers in because people are like, oh, I kind of need to commit to 3 full seasons before I catch up.
Yeah.
So then that's where the 4th season can become that hurdle to then progress, so it drops off and they just drop the show after that. So it's all economic based, but yeah, it sucks a bit when you get really hooked into a show and then they end season 3 on a big cliffhanger and then never come back. And yeah, again, I was doing some research on random trivia. I really enjoyed checking out the trivia for some of these things this week. When Ralph Macchio, who plays Daniel, came back for the first season of Cobra Kai, he was 56, which is 4 years older than Pat Morita, who plays Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid movie.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, like looking at them, you
wouldn't pick that.
They've already signed on for season 4, so it's locked in apparently. They haven't started filming yet because of COVID. They weren't able to get back onto set at the end of last year. So it looks like they're aiming for roughly the same time next year, 2022. So that'll be a nice, exciting one to kick off next year. And the other interesting fact I saw was Ralph Macchio was 22, portraying a 17-year-old in Karate Kid. And Mary Mouser, who plays his daughter in Cobra Kai, was also 22, portraying a 17-year-old in season 1 of Cobra Kai.
I wouldn't have picked that either.
Yep, like a weird coincidence. The mum in Cobra Kai is only 14 years older than Samantha.
Yeah, weird how they do that. Like you don't pick their ages sometimes, do you? I mean, some shows you feel it. Like, I hate that I can say this, but I remember watching Gossip Girl with Anne, and it was like they were all supposed to be high schoolers, and you could tell that the people in there were like
mid-20s, 30s, yeah.
Like, take the backpack off. Like, no one believes you.
Yep.
But that one, I definitely wouldn't have picked the ages for this one.
No, I wouldn't pick Samantha as being a 22-year-old when she's in this show. Like, she definitely looks like a teenager.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, her mum is only technically 14 years older than her in real life.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been a good teenage mum story.
If you enjoyed season 1 and 2, definitely check out season 3 when you can. I'm excited to see where it goes in season 4. It left on a nice big tease at the end.
Okay.
The other one I watched was the brand new show from Marvel Studios over on Disney Plus. So it's called WandaVision, obviously focusing on Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, and Vision from the MCU. This show marks the beginning of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Can you run me through phases? What does that mean?
Okay, so Phase 1, let me just pull it up.
You need a guy like Joe Rogan has. The Jamie?
Yep. Yep, it is Jamie.
Just pull that up for me. Scroll down. So is it talking like different superhero stages and like how far along it's gone from when the comic books came out?
Marvel Cinematic Universe's phases. So Phase 1, 2, and 3 were part of what they called the Infinity Saga. So obviously focusing on the Infinity Stones. Phase 1 was Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and the first Avengers movie. So it's kind of like them introducing all the characters and then building up to that first movie where they come together.
Right.
And then Phase 2 was Iron Man 3, Thor Dark World, Captain America Winter Soldier, Guardians, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. So then that was where they built up to the second time they had to all come together. and then they brought Ant-Man in to introduce the other universes.
Yeah.
Like the parallel universes. And then 3 was building up to the ultimate climax with the Infinity Stones. So that had Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange to introduce magic, Guardians of the Galaxy to introduce more space stuff, Spider-Man Homecoming, which brought Spider-Man into the universe, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, the second Ant-Man, so Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and then Spider-Man Far From Home. And then Phase 4 is meant to include, so it's got WandaVision, and then it's going to have Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Eternals, the next Spider-Man, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Another multiverse.
Mm-hmm. Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther 2, which is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that'll be sad. I almost want to retire Black Panther.
I'm assuming they're going to have the sister take over as Black Panther in that one.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Take it back. Don't retire Black Panther. Good move, Marvel.
Yep.
Do that.
Yeah, I think they've already said they're not going to recast him, so they're going to have to try and work out how to pivot it across to her.
Yeah.
Then we get Captain Marvel 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and then Fantastic Four.
And they're loaded up, aren't they, Marvel? Like, they're ready to go for the next 3 years.
Until Ant-Man and the Wasp and Fantastic Four don't have dates, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is slated for 2023. And then they have all of the, which is one where WandaVision is, all of the Disney Plus shows. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier get a show, Loki gets a show. There's a show called What If, so that's going to be, that's like a, what if Captain America was this person instead? Some sort of weird thing like that.
Right.
Ms. Marvel gets a show, Hawkeye gets his own show. There's a Moon Knight, She-Hulk has a show. There's a show called Secret Invasion, Ironheart, and Armor Wars, which I think is Don Cheadle. So they've got so much stuff built up. Like Disney Plus this year is going to be incredible if you don't already have it, because they've got all of these Marvel shows coming up, and from the looks of it, they might end up getting Black Widow, because they've been trying to get it in the cinemas, but that's looking a bit dicey at the moment, so they'll probably end up just putting that on Disney Plus, similar to what they did with Mulan, and have it as the pay a bit extra and get it right away.
I just watched Mulan, that new one. I wasn't a big fan, to be honest.
I enjoyed it, but I've never seen the original, so...
See, I enjoyed the original, didn't like the new one.
Okay, yep.
For some reason, go figure, but the live-action version was more unrealistic than the cartoon version. Other than the luck dragon. Other than the little dragon that follows her around. But just the way that Mulan moved and the things she did and all the magic and stuff, that just didn't happen in the first one. That's the bit that got me.
Yep, okay. So yeah, like Disney Plus has all of these Marvel shows, and then they've got all of the Star Wars shows as well. Like Star Wars is dropping, like they've got Mandalorian, which is just finished, but then they've got a whole heap of other shows coming as well. So if you haven't got Disney Plus, now is probably the year to jump on it, because you're going to have something new almost every week.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've already got it and I'm enjoying it, but yeah, I don't really watch much of the new Marvel stuff. Is the WandaVision good?
I probably wouldn't start it right now. I'd wait until there's a few more episodes built up, because they dropped the first 2 episodes on Friday night.
Yeah.
And it's focusing on, Scarlet Witch and Vision, and they're sort of living in... It's hard to tell. It's like this weird parallel universe where each episode is paying homage to a particular decade of sitcom television. And they're just trying to sort of hide who they are without anybody else knowing. Episode 1 is the 50s, and it's based on the Dick Van Dyke Show. Episode 2 is then the 1960s, and is based on I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched. So they're trying to conceal their powers during these times, but they have occasional sort of moments where they break and slip up, and the characters surrounding them start to notice, like, hang on, that was a bit weird. And the first 2 episodes are probably 99% black and white. There's a couple of little flashes of colour here or there when they do have those breaks. So
yeah,
it's hard to tell what is happening at the moment. There's been lots of little teasers for Hydra, Stark Industries, Strucker, Sword, which is Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. So it's obviously something's going on with Wanda, and she's controlling what people are seeing, and at the end of episode 1 there's a little teaser that suggests that as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes in. I think it's a 9 or 10 episode run. Once I think it's going to be one of those shows where once there's about 4 or 5 episodes built up, that'll be the time to get in, because you'll be able to binge watch those first 4 or 5 hours of content and get an idea of what's happening, but then still have the tease of what's coming up in the last half of the season.
Okay. It's just very complex now. I feel like I've missed a step in the Marvel universe, and there's just so much going on now that you just get lost in it.
Yeah, I think that's where they're going to have an issue when they do start dropping all of these TV shows, because it's going to get to the point where if I haven't watched one of the movies or all of these shows, am I going to understand what's happening in some of these other movies?
Yeah.
Like when we get to Eternals or Shang-Chi, am I going to have any idea of what's going on when these characters pop in, or even Thor and Black Panther 2? Like, do I need to know what's happened in WandaVision to understand why there's magic and why there's multiple dimensions and things like that?
Yeah, and that makes it tricky, because for people like me that aren't massive Marvel cinematic fans, like, I do enjoy it, but I just have my favorite kind of superheroes that I'll watch those movies. Like, obviously Spider-Man for me is a big one. Thor is a big one. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Beyond that, Black Panther. Beyond that, I don't really kind of expand out much. I wasn't a big Avengers fan, and then you kind of get lost in all the random things that are going on.
Yeah, I think they're going to have trouble selling people unless Black Widow leaves some sort of big tease. They're going to have trouble selling people on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, because I have no idea who that is. Eternals, another one where I'm like, I think that's some sort of weird space thing.
But then again, it's, for me at first, I'd never really heard of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
And that was a new one, but I love that one. So, yeah, to be fair, it could be something really good. It's just, at the moment, there's so much of it that I'm really hesitant to be one of the first people to watch it. I'll wait for somebody else to tell me how fantastic it is, and then I'll take the risk. Yeah,
especially just looking at the slate, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 movies scheduled for this year, another 4 for 2022, and then 3 for potentially 2023.
Yeah, 11 movies.
Yep. Fantastic Four will be interesting to see if they can actually make that a good movie for a change. They've struggled with the Fantastic Four movies. And with WandaVision, they did a really cool job of sort of capturing the feeling of the 50s and 60s with these shows, obviously presenting them in black and white. They had a live studio audience apparently for some of the filming, so they really get that sitcom vibe. And then I looked at some of the random facts again. Because they are filmed in black and white, Vision, who's usually maroon or red, they had to paint him blue so that it showed up correctly in the black and white.
Wow.
With the first 2 episodes, they specifically used period-appropriate lenses and lights to get the proper feel.
Yeah.
So over the course of the season, they used 47 different lenses to get the 7 different time periods. And for the episodes between the 1950s and 60s, they used tungsten lights instead of LEDs, so that had all the correct feel, I guess.
Was it worth it? Did you pick up on it?
It definitely felt like even Lauren was like, these really feel like I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched watching those 2 episodes. So
Okay.
it works. Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany are awesome. They really capture the roles. There's a couple of cool cameos. Deborah Jo Rupp, who is the mum from That 70s Show.
Yep.
She pops up in episode 1. Catherine Hahn, who you would recognise from Anchorman, Step Brothers, where she's the horny sister of the brother that's married.
Yep.
She's in this one as well, in episode 2. So actually, I think she's in both. She's the neighbour, so she pops up consistently. Enjoyable, but yeah, like I said, I think wait until there's 4 or 5 episodes and then dive in and binge watch those and then see how you feel. Hopefully it's not terrible by those 4 episodes and you're hooked and want to watch the rest, and hopefully it also opens up a bit more about what's happening, because I'm very lost at the moment. Fingers crossed it's not crucial that you watch these for the movies, because if these are bad and you have to have watched these to make Phase 4 make sense, that's going to be a problem. And lastly, you watched one other very interesting show on Netflix. We'll have to be very careful on this part.
Okay. Well, I've been on a bit of a random run on Netflix, but the new show that came out, The History of Swear Words, I've been watching. So definitely something to watch if you're an adult, because they do not hold back on the swearing.
No, they do not.
It is... Have you watched it?
I've watched episode 1, which is the big one.
The big one, yeah, the F-bomb. But I think, first up, I really love that it's hosted by Nicolas Cage, and that he has embraced his kind of cult following that he has. He's been a bit of the butt of a few internet memes and things since the last few years, and I think he's really just embraced that lighter side of himself, which I really, really enjoy. And then watching someone that tends to play such serious characters or such PG characters in National Treasure or whatever, just flat out swear through episodes. I just found it really funny and enjoyable.
And they swear a lot. Like that first episode, they dropped the F-bomb. I would hate to guess how many times. A lot.
Yeah, but I really like the way that they approach it, because really, in the end, they talk about it, but a swear word is no different than any other word that we speak like we are right now, but it's just the value that we assign to it, that we should feel morally shocked by it, that gives it its power. But yeah, it's funny, and they talk about the versatility of swear words, particularly the F-bomb being the most versatile word in the English language, and they have linguistics professors and things go in there and discuss their opinions of swear words. But when you think about it, extremely versatile as a word. You can use that for any emotion. You can be angry, happy, surprised, shocked, whatever you want, sad.
Especially in Australia, it's used as all types of... It can be a verb, it's a noun, it's a proper noun at times. Very versatile word.
Yeah, I liked it. And then the cameos that they have with people are quite cool, I think. And then using those cameos to prove their scientific points, like that. They've proven that scientifically your pain threshold goes up by roughly 50% if you swear.
Yep. Which
I think is very true. If you kick your toe, you know all about it. It helps you get through.
And yeah, it really is one of those ingrained words. When people kick their toe, they don't have to think about it. It just comes out.
Yeah, well, even the part where they were saying, okay, so there are people out there that use the PG swear words more often, I don't know, sugar honey iced tea, or they say frick or things like that. But just because they have assigned that same value in their heads as what we would for the full swear word, they get that same effect.
Yep.
So they still swear in their own heads. It's just not to a level that they think's morally unacceptable.
My favourite fact that they pointed out was movies with the most uses of the F word and actors who've said it the most.
Yeah, that one surprised me.
Surprising results.
Yeah. Well, you'd think as soon as they said Samuel L. Jackson, I thought, yeah, that's got to be it.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time I think of his famous movie quotes, like "Snakes on a Plane" or Pulp Fiction, I think, yeah, he's swearing in those. But yeah, it was Jonah Hill.
Yeah, Jonah Hill has said it the most, and then the top two movies were Wolf of Wall Street and Uncut Gems.
Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street's going to get you up there.
Yeah, it kind of made me want to go back and watch Wolf of Wall Street and sit there and I don't remember them saying it that much.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that you kind of just get desensitized if you're watching those things and you're in those contexts. I mean, for me as a school teacher, that's always a big thing because we come down on the kids for obviously swearing because it's not the right thing to do. And their response to me is always, well, I bet you swear. And my comment back to that is always like, it's about the context that you're in. Like, yeah, if I kick my toe or whatever, I'm at home or around maybe my mates at home or something like that, then yeah, I swear. I'm not going to say to you I don't. But you need to be aware of the context you're in and choose the right language for the context. You wouldn't do it at work, and me as a teacher, I'm at work, and you shouldn't do it at school or, I don't know, in a church or in a shopping center and things like that. But I definitely think swear words have their place. And hearing where they came from and the history of them, like it says in the title, I found really interesting as well, because me growing up and hearing where I thought swear words came from, I did get fed a lot of those stories and thought that they were true about they said the F-bomb was originally fornication under consent of king.
Yep.
That made total sense to me. I thought, oh yeah, well, there it is. That's where it came from. Turns out that's a flat lie.
Yep.
And then I also thought for the S word, I heard that story about, okay, well, they used to store fertilizer as cheap ballast in the bottom of ships, and it would get water in it if they put it too low in the ship, and that would then ferment and cause an explosive gas, and that's why they put on the boxes, store high in transit. I fully thought that made sense. That's a lie. So, yeah, it was actually interesting at the same time to see the history of the swear words, but also the value of the swear words as well, I guess. I think it's funny, and the way that they approach it's really funny, and I think Nicolas Cage does a good job of it. And as long as you obviously don't have any vulnerable ears within earshot, and like I say about swearing, as long as you're in the right context, I think it was a really good show. Really lighthearted and just funny.
Yeah, Lauren and I put it on one morning, and then my mum was in the shower when we started, and then came out, and it was like halfway through the episode 1, and she was like, what the heck are you watching? It's just dropping it every 2 seconds. I was like, oh yeah, it's the history of this word.
Yeah.
Okay. And then like once she saw it, then she was in and she wanted to learn all about it as well. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think you're always going to have swear words in any language, and I think it was interesting as well. You think words become less offensive over time, but it was funny to see how, I'm trying not to swear, but the S word, it's funny to see how that never was an offensive word until people got private toilets. So they're talking about everyone used to, back in the day, have to sit in rooms because they didn't have flushing toilets in everyone's house or whatever, and they'd all sit in rooms and go number 2 together. And that word wasn't offensive then because that act wasn't considered offensive because it was something that you had to do in front of people. And it wasn't until plumbing got better and people could afford closed-off toilets and private situations that word actually became offensive, because the act of what you were doing became something that was considered to be offensive itself.
Ah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so you think words would be desensitized. That one actually got more sensitized through time.
Yep. I also liked that they talked about how swearing saved cinema at one point.
Yeah, well, it made it more realistic, didn't it?
Yep. And it's funny, yeah, now that they have all the restrictions, like to be G, you can't say it at all, but to be PG, you can say it 3 times or once or something. Like you can say this specific word this many times, or if you want to use a slightly less offensive word, you can say it another X amount of times.
Funny to think about the people that must make those decisions. Like, who's the big moral compass that decides that if you've said it 3 times, that's too many?
Yep. Yeah, and then you have movies like Wolf of Wall Street and Uncut Gems who are dropping the F-bomb 569 times and 560 times respectively.
Yeah, I guess as a parent there's got to be a limit, but I think in my head it's kind of like either you're offended by it or you're not.
Yep.
As long as you're, like I said, as long as you're in that right context. But I mean, if it's me in my own lounge room watching a movie, I'm either going to be offended by it and be upset, or I'm just not going to be at all, and you can say it as many times as you need to.
Yeah, we were watching Shaun of the Dead this afternoon.
Good movie.
And they dropped the C-bomb very early in that movie. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I don't think they have that as an episode.
I bet that was offensive to the US when that happened.
Yeah.
Not so much here in Australia or in England.
No, that's what I mean. Like, even countries is different. And they have some British and Australian comedians as cameos on the show, and they kind of talk about it too, that depending on the country, it's different contexts and different values assigned to each word. So, yeah, interesting. And I like that they break it up by word and kind of go through them. But I think they were always going to have a really hard time leading out with the F-bomb, because that's obviously the big one. And so it's always like you're trying to live up to that first episode the whole time, which I think is the best one still.
Yeah, that was my problem too. I watched that first episode and I was like, do I really need to watch the rest of these? Like,
where are you going to go from here?
Unless season 2 comes back with the C-bomb right at the start, like the next 5 episodes were kind of, I looked down and was like, they don't particularly draw me in. But now that you've mentioned the other one,
good dodge.
That's made me want to go and check that one out and see what that one's like. Some nice, interesting facts in there.
Yeah, and it dives into language associated with men or women particularly, and the way that those words can be used to empower or disempower specific genders. So, I mean, it's not so much even just funny stuff. Sometimes it's actually meaningful that, yeah, different words and different genders and different meanings. So, yeah, it does take different angles and different looks at the words that it chooses. So it's not just, yeah, the big ones and the same jokes. So it is quite interesting.
Okay, sweet. What would be your top recommendation for the week?
I did enjoy The Jungle, and that's probably a good movie if you want to see Daniel Radcliffe not being Harry Potter. But I got really hooked on Surviving Death. Like I said, if you're somebody that has an interest or just is a bit spooked out or wants to learn a bit more about the inside of supernatural things, I got really hooked on that. So Surviving Death for me.
Okay, sweet. For me, it's Cobra Kai. It's probably one of their best seasons because they do focus a little bit more on the kids. It's not all about Daniel and Johnny, and the little teasers for what's coming up in season 4 have me really excited. Shame I have to wait almost 12 months, if not more.
You'll get there.
So thank you for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media at JamieUpsMedia. We've literally just dropped a new issue of the magazine if you want to head over there and check that one out. And you can follow Buddy on Instagram at a.b_CSEE and see all the photos from his hiking mishap.
The photos, typical Instagram, the photos look fantastic. They do not tell the whole story.
I wish you'd got photos of Anne just like in stress mode.
She held it together pretty well, to be fair. She's pretty good in those situations, but yeah, it was very stressful. So yeah, great place to go, but like Instagram, you can't trust everything you see.
At least now you'll never have that moment again.
No, thank you, Garmin GPS.
Good present, Anne.
Very good present.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much and have a good month and talk to you again soon.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine Jam Zine over on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the Jam publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Brian and June Hart, Courtney Paulson, Tracy Apps.